everybody. My dad thinks his podcast is amazing, so please subscribe, give it 5 stars or whatever, and maybe he'll finally stop talking about it. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Before we get to our special guest today, just want to remind everybody again, please make sure you're reviewing, liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast on all our platforms. Right now we're on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast.
And I'm working on getting us onto all streaming platforms. So
Tall task. Takes a while.
Yeah, it's on my list of
the to-do list.
200 things to do.
We'll eventually get around to it.
Right. So who we got today?
Anyway, today it's such an honor for me to have this guy join. I don't know about you, but can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel the Danergy in the room? My good friend, Dan Higgins, joins us today. Hey, Dan, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Good morning. That term gets me every time, the Danergy. It's just, I'm an obnoxious guy from Jersey. It's not my fault. That's the way we are. So,
I love it.
I got to tell you something, Jess. I want to point something out. So I'm watching you guys get ready. And Jess is over here with the hair and should I wear it this way? Should I do this? And Ryan's over there like this.
Yeah.
The difference between men and women. Guys will walk by a mirror. I see it at the gym all the time. Guys will walk by the mirror like me. Look at me like, I look like, like this. And women are like, I'm not perfect enough. I look great, Jess. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. Ryan used to do this thing where when he would get out of the shower, he would stand, not to be TMI, but completely naked in the mirror and hold his gut because he had a big old beer belly, and he'd be like, man, I'm sexy as hell. Like, he'd look at me and say, how are you not like all over this all the time? Like,
what can I say?
So yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, Ryan. Nothing wrong with
that's what I said.
Call it confidence.
A lot of confidence.
That's great.
And then he does something like leave the creamer open in the fridge, and I go to shake it, and it explodes everywhere. So
my wife is lid challenged. She can't put a lid on to save her life. I don't generally let her in the kitchen because I really don't want my jars open and lids left off. So I just kind of keep her, I cook, I do the clean, like just stay aside. So I get where I feel your pain, Jess.
Well, I'm very clumsy. So normally I am the one causing the chaos.
Mm-hmm. Usually, it was a different feeling this time.
He goes, how'd that happen?
Her nickname's Messy Jessie, so if that explains it, she's definitely lid challenged as well. Usually.
Which is why I have to do the hair and the makeup and everything. So at least on the outside, it looks put together.
That's right.
I got to say, I watched a couple of your podcasts just to get ready, because I wasn't familiar with them. I want to point out, you guys talked about a Disney trip. That's a recent trip you took.
Yeah.
So your frustrations with the NA options in Disney. Yeah. I was in Disney and I couldn't get. I'm a pescatarian. I eat fish. I eat vegetables. I don't eat much anything else. I couldn't get anything to eat in Animal Kingdom. Now, Animal Kingdom, you're honoring animals, and I couldn't get anything to eat but animals. So I wrote a well-worded letter to Disney. I got a phone call. They talked to me for about an hour and a half, just researching my brain on other things, because I was like, hey, you're losing 12% of your market because I just don't eat there, blah, blah, blah. It went on and on and on. So 3 months later, we go back to Disney. Guess what's in Animal Kingdom? Pescatarian options.
Interesting.
Yes, they will change if enough people, and I like to do handwritten letters. Because I just feel like that's a different thing that everybody's emailing, everybody's posting, nobody's writing letters. except this whack job.
That's I still do too. Ask her.
Yeah,
I,
that
I
was.
handwrite letters too.
I mean, when I first became a real estate agent, that was one of the best pieces of advice my coach gave me. She was like, sit down and write 10 like handwritten thank you notes per week to
Yes.
clients.
Yes.
I love that. My brother is actually pescatarian.
Yes.
And I nursed our daughter for her first 18 years of her, or 18 years.
months.
Oh my goodness, 18 months
Damn,
of her life. I know, right? She's not even 18 years old yet, so we're still going.
PMI.
I know. Listen, it was the creamer. It threw me off this morning, got me all off my game. 18 months, and she had a lot of allergies. So I essentially had to go to like a vegan diet because it was like no dairy and things like that. And no peanuts. So if you're cutting out like certain things. So I noticed how difficult it was to go out and eat and having to check labels. Like I couldn't have anything with even whey protein in it. And that eliminates a lot of options.
It's a journey in itself. It's much like quitting drinking. When I quit eating meat, it was probably 15 years ago or so. And when I quit, it was a journey. It took a lot of work to become good at it. Now I'm actually quite good at cooking it, and and now I know how to pick a restaurant according to what they serve.
Right.
Now I pick them according to whether they have NA beer options. Much like Ryan, I like to have a beer. Nice cold one, glass. No, I don't want the alcohol in it. I love to have a cold glass.
That's right.
And if the restaurant's willing to sell it, I'm willing to buy it. So.
Well, and I think that's the whole point, right? It's just being inclusive. You know, that was the biggest reason we started this podcast, is because I said it, I don't know how many of the episodes you've watched, but if you haven't watched the beginning ones, I encourage anybody to go back, because I'm very transparent about the fact that I did not believe Ryan. I was not nice to Ryan the first like 9 to 12 months he was sober, because he had done it performatively so many times before. And so when he first told me he was on Reframe and on an app, you know, now I can look back and realize a very close-minded view of that. Like, no, you need to go to meetings in person. I didn't like him drinking the NA options. I was like, it's just a transfer addiction. And, you know, I mean, I had reason, but I have evolved and learned now. That's not the case for everybody.
I got to say, it's funny you say that. Now, my wife viewed it not as a transfer addiction, but as a tool. When I quit drinking, when I finally did, and we can go into like how that happened and all that later. But when I first made the decision, I drank an NA beer or two every night. But then as I progressed into my sobriety, then I was able to eliminate that. So I find it to be a good working tool for some to be like, yeah, I'm not missing my ritual. I can still pour a glass of wine with dinner because it's non-alcoholic wine. I can still have a beer after dinner because it's a non-alcoholic beer. So being able to keep your rituals and your habits while you eliminate the poison, and then you can work on, you know, I don't believe, and I'm a guy who quit smoking. It's coming up on, it'll be 32 years on Groundhog's Day. I've been without a cigarette, and I still love the smell of them. But anyway, and I miss it. I was a 2-pack a day guy. I quit that like, bam. One day I went from 2 packs to 0 packs. And that's a really hard thing to do. And I highly encourage people, unless you have to do that or have reason to just stop instantly, I highly encourage people. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera a little bit.
It's okay.
Highly encourage people. It's my Danergy. I highly encourage people to do things slowly, to train yourself slowly into. So if you progress from going from, I was drinking basically 11 to 12 units a night, we'll call it, because let's face it, 2 glasses of bourbon is 4 shots, 5 shots, right? When you're drinking an IPA, a proper one, you're drinking 2 beers. So I went from that down to, progressed less and less and less down to a reasonable, what I felt to be a reasonable level before I quit. So I highly encourage that.
Yeah, I was the same way when I, like Jess said, I was doing the NA beer options because I was, I convinced myself that I loved the taste of it, which is why I did it. And I was just drinking shitty Miller Lite anyway, but every once in a while I was a bourbon guy. And then I realized, no, I actually kind of enjoy the taste of it.
Yeah.
The alcohol part I could deal without. It just, it was, like you said, it was that mental thing. I was like, okay, I could have a few of these, and then in the morning I wake up and I feel amazing.
Yeah.
For some people they can't do that, but for me, guys like me and you, it was no problem at all. And now I've gotten to the point where, football was on yesterday and I was cleaning, and it's normally a thing, you normally grab a drink, which I did, but it was an NA option.
Right.
And I only have a few. Where before it was like 18 of them.
I only need one, and then I'm like, I'm satisfied.
Like, it's fine. It took a little while to get to that point, though. Right. But once you get there, you're like, I could have it or leave it. It doesn't really matter. But
getting back to that taste, I will tell you, I'll go back to my childhood. Before I was, 8 years old, they sold this thing called near beer, and I don't know how old you are, but they sold this near beer, and I loved it. I loved that taste before I loved the alcohol. It progressed into alcohol, and now it's progressing back. It's going back to my childhood.
Full circle.
You know what? But I love that we're opening up these conversations, right? Because with addiction, mental health, anything, for so long, medically, every person is treated the same. Like, you have to work this program, you have to do this, you have to do that. We treat everyone the same way. It presents as this, and this is a solution. And I understand that you have to create a baseline, right? Like, there are certain constants. Like, you have to work a program, right? You have to go to meetings, you have to have community, you have to have accountability. Like, there are some constants that are steadfast that you start with. But something that I've seen, and I think it's amazing, is that it's such a subjective and unique journey. And for so long, people would say, well, all of these people, like AA is working, or quitting cold turkey is working. What's wrong with me? Why isn't it working with me? Like, there must be something wrong with me, and people give up. And then that feeds back into that hustle culture, right? Like, if you're not hustling, if you're not doing this and showing signs of improvement and health, and everyone else around you is, doing great, but you're not, then it's really discouraging. So, like I have a lot of friends in recovery who they can't drink NA options because for them, the addiction was directly tied to the action. Because, they're like, if I have one thing that even tastes like alcohol, my brain automatically is triggered to chase the effect. But then you have other people who, through their recovery, realize, like, I genuinely enjoy the ritualistic nature of this. I could give a shit less about getting drunk or high, or if anything, like, that part, honestly, I never really enjoyed. And so I just love that more and more people are coming forward to be like, listen, if you've tried this and it doesn't work, that's okay. Try this. That might not work either. And then you try this, and you keep going until you find something that works for you.
Whether you're talking about the beverage itself or the programs, AA, let's face it, Jess, if you go to a barber shop, you're not going to get a great haircut, right?
Right.
AA is a fellowship. And the word fellow is in there for a reason. It was invented for men. And that's just because that was the nature of the beast back then, right? I'm sure they've progressed a little bit, but I feel like things like Reframe offer, which is, what fixed me, I'll say, offers more of an openness. Whether you're male, female, identify one way, identify another way, whether you're trans, whether you're whoever you are accepted, and you can create your own journey your own way. Because when I went in there, nobody told me, hey, you have to do it this way.
Right.
They're just like, whatever you can do to reduce. But
That's
we're
right.
here.
That's right.
We're friends, a bunch of cheerleaders. That's all
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
And that's great because you need that support. You need people to understand that if you walk into an AA meeting and say, I drink 12 beers a night or 12 units a night, they're like, oh my God, gotta quit right now.
Mhm.
Whereas you walk into Reframe and you're like, yeah, 12 units a night. And they're like, Heidi's like, yeah. And how can we reduce that? Heidi,
Yeah.
like that's a different way of doing it. And it's the same with the beverages,
Sure.
Now I drink more ginger ale than anything, diet ginger ale. That's my thing. I can pour that into a beer glass. It looks
That's
like a
right.
beer glass.
Yeah.
It gives me the same bubble in my nose that I'm looking for. I like the flavor. It's not too sweet. Whatever works for you. Like I said, everybody's
Well,
got their journey.
Yeah.
I love that.
And obviously it's worked for you. You're coming up on 2 years now, which is amazing.
That's
I'm doing the
awesome.
same.
I'm amazed too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not at this point, but I'm going back.
So let's go back a little bit. Before that day, your last day one, I like to say, what was it that inspired you to actually get sober?
So it's funny, on New Year's Day this year, for some reason, I rolled out of bed and decided to clean out and wait, you guys do know who you invited here, right? I'm not going to tell a short story, so y'all can sit back, grab a coffee.
I have popcorn and drinks. So
You're speaking my language. I go back and listen to our podcast, and I'm like, I think I spoke for a solid 7 minutes.
She
so
does that every podcast.
the floor is yours.
Enjoy.
I was cleaning out this drawer next to my bed, and it's there's all these journals in there that I'd written, and they date back to 2006, and they're all about, I drank too much, I shouldn't be drinking this much, I need to quit, I don't like this. This is 2000. Are we allowed to curse on here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sober as fuck. I mean, come on.
2006. We're talking 18, 19 years ago that I was trying, and it dates back further than that, because I quit when I was 20 years old for a whole year.
Wow.
And then I found a Quaalude under a car seat. That was the end of that
That
game.
was it.
Right? Quit when I was 30, just because I'm like, I got 2 kids. I better, straighten. Quit. I'm like, okay, I got it under control. I quit when I was 40 because I'm like, all right, I got 4 kids now. I got to I quit so many times over the years. So, it just kept going and going, and until basically one day, a couple of years ago, I have a lot of medical issues. I have arthritis. Not a lot of medical issues. I'm very blessed. I'm a snowboarder. I'm a bicycle. I bicycle across states. Like, I'm a very active person, but I have a lot of arthritis problems, right? So I was seeing the doctor about this and the gout and bursitis and this. My wife's like, why don't you try 30 days without alcohol? And she's never been down on me with the alcohol, with the drinking. She's accepted me for the way I am. I'm a successful businessman who drinks too much, right? She just let it go. She said, why don't you try 30 days? I was like, well, I don't think I can do that. She said, well, that might be a problem then. And I thought, you're right. It is a problem. And that's kind of like the moment it clicked with me. Like, this has become to where you're joking yourself. Every fucking morning you get up and you say to yourself, don't drink tonight. You feel like shit and you got to go to work. And then that night I'm like, oh, you don't feel that bad. Have a drink. And it just, rinse, repeat,
Yep.
right? Literally rinse. But, yeah. And so I got on Reframe, I'm like, okay, how to quit alcohol? Cause I wasn't doing AA. So I'm like, how do I quit alcohol? I need something more. I can't be in AA because there's nothing anonymous about me in my area. Everybody in this county knows me because I run a successful flooring business, and I'm very, very popular, right? So I can't be anonymous anywhere. So I'm like, I got to do this online somehow. So I literally went on, clicked on Reframe, started with the, like everybody else, I'll start with the drink counting, and you drink count. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I can cut back. I cut back to the weekends. That was great. got this under wraps. I'm just drinking on the weekend. Well, the funniest thing happened. All of a sudden, I'm like not drinking all week. Then I drink Friday night, Saturday night, just have like 3 or 4 beers, literally, like not lying, 3 or 4 units a night. I started looking forward to Sunday. Because Sunday night I didn't have to drink.
Right.
Well, what the fuck are you doing here? Like you're literally looking forward to not drinking, but yet Friday night you're back to drinking. Yeah. So one Saturday night I didn't drink because the next day we had to travel to see our one of our children was in what children? They're an adult, right? They're in the play in Delaware, and I'm like, I got to drive from the Pocono Mountains to Delaware the next day, so I'm not going to drink. So I didn't drink that night. That was March 4th. The next day we were on the ski lift, and I turned to my wife. I said, I think I'm going to try that 30 days. And she's like, I'll do it with you. And I said, no, this has got to be me and only me. So long and short, I do the 30, not long and short. There's nothing short about what I talk. Anyway, I do the 30 days. Well, at 20 some days, I'm on this meeting with Nancy, who I absolutely fucking adore. Nancy is I tell her she's my spirit animal, right? Her and I can't begin to list the things that we have in common. But when I first went on the meeting, I'm like, that's what Janis Joplin would be if she made it to 60 years old, right? She just reminds me of that vibe that just, yeah, it's good, right? And Janis is a heartthrob of mine. So anyway, Nancy was hitting her 30, and she's like, I'm going to keep going. And I was like, bitch, I love a competition. If she can keep going for 30, I can keep going from 30. And I just kept going. And I can't tell you, just getting to this point where, I got to the point a long time ago where I ain't even thinking of drink. Although last night I had, and probably because I was doing this podcast, I had the funniest dream where I was waiting for this guy to mix me a fake martini to a point where I walked away, and then I walked back and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know what he put in it. So now I can't even drink it. Now I don't know what I'm paying for this thing that I can't drink it. Anyway, to get to the point, which I got to a long time ago, where it doesn't, there's no thought in my mind of drinking. In fact, quite the opposite. I sit in a bar and see the people sitting at the bar, and I recognize them. They're the people like I used to be. I walk into a bar, it could be crowded as shit. The bartender looks, sees me, pours my beer, and puts it on the bar. No question. Everybody else waiting for a drink going, why is that guy getting a beer?
Yeah.
I'm a heavy tipper. I'm also nice to bartenders. I love bartenders. They're the greatest people. You get more information out of them. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
I thought that was great, though.
It was long in coming. I should have quit at 20 years old when I quit after I had an accident. I should have quit then. And I regret not quitting and being able to raise my kids completely there. So, yeah, I will get emotional at times. So
that's okay. I do too.
Emotional.
I feel the same way. Now that I'm at this point, and like you, I'm coming up on 2 years in a few months, and I look at how that one decision has affected everything in my life. And the main thing that it's affected is family to me. And the way, I'm viewed, the way I treat people, the way they treat me, the love and respect that I get now. And then looking at myself and loving myself now where I didn't before. And I can tell and I can see it in pictures. Jess and I kind of laugh about, you're a Facebook guy, I'm sure, where old pictures will show up, right? Yeah. And I see this guy, and to me, that guy doesn't even exist. He did, and he was a lot of fun, but he doesn't exist. He's this overweight asshole that I can't fucking stand or even imagine being anymore.
Yeah.
So it's something I wish I would have quit 15, 20 years ago, because where I would be at today, I think would just be incredible.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that about not recognizing yourself or seeing a totally different self.
Yeah.
I've talked about this in the meetings before. It literally got to the point where I would like stare myself in the mirror, glasses off, like look in my eyeballs, and I couldn't see my soul anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can look in the mirror, I can look in my eyes, and eyes are the window to the soul. I tell people that all the time, and I authentically love people like everybody. I'm one of those people. I can meet you. I can tell you a funny story. I'm gonna just tell a quick story. I was 20 years old. I was 20 years old, driving down the street, stopped for a pack of cigarettes. Meet this guy, can't speak any English, hardly at all, from India. I'm asking, he needs a ride. I giving him a ride. He's like, I got to pick up my luggage. I got to move out of my cousin's house. I'm like, where are you going to live? He's like, I don't know. Take me to a motel or something. I took him home. He lived with me for 6 months. Like, I'm one of those people that just, I view the best in all peoples. I love people. But so you can look somebody in the eye and read that person and feel
Mm-hmm.
that person, see the authenticity. And I'm finding more and more that when I know somebody that's sober, like looking in their eyes are different than people who drink on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this cloud compared to this very intense feeling that you get looking in their eyes. It's weird.
I don't want to say it's funny you say that, but it's funny you say that because that was always the thing that I noticed about about anyone in my life who struggled with addiction. Like I can still go back to pictures and I'll look at Ryan and I'll be like, you were drunk in that picture. And he's like, no, I wasn't. I'm like, yeah, you were. He's like, how do you know? I said, it's the eyes. You're so true. Like, my brother was in active addiction for 20 years and it's the same thing. It's not that it's this like smoking weed, like bloodshot, that's a very obvious sort of deal. It's not even like a dilated pupil. It is a vacancy.
Yes.
It is a vacancy. It is, you never make eye contact even when you're making eye contact. And it's almost like, this clear film that goes over your eyes and you're just void of.
Yes.
And it's eerie because for someone as a loved one, the person, when you look in their eyes, the person you know and love is gone. And that's what, it's a phrase people love to hate, but it's, you love the addict and you hate the disease. And that's so true. With my brother, he, like I said, lived in active addiction for 20 years and not just alcohol. And it got to the point where, he showed up at my house one day and I had to put my body in the doorway and say, I love you, but you can't come here. You can't be here.
Right.
You have to leave. And it was difficult because you don't know what's going to happen to that person. Right. And we're talking, this was literally at the tail end of his addiction. So we'd been going through this for a very long time. And when and he's been sober now, I should say, for 5 years. And he is extremely successful. When I say successful, he heads up intake for detox. And I mean, he is just, the transformation is unlike anything I've ever seen. And we were always super close. People used to think we were twins when we were little because we would just speak with our body language, And when he went to rehab and sober living and all of that, I remember the first time he really had clarity and sat down and he goes, you were just there. It was like I got sober and you were just there. I said, I never left.
Right.
I never stopped loving you. I never left. But it was like you were in a coma for 20 years.
Right.
It's
when I look at, raising my kids, I was super dad in a lot of ways. I was, I would coach a team that I didn't know how to play the sport, What the hell do I know about soccer and baseball, right? Hockey player. Got hit too many times.
That's right.
I'm like, I'm coaching these. I'm building the sets at the theater. I was never involved in theater in my life. I love theater. I'm more a theater fan than a sports fan for the most part. But building state, like I did everything. I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning, taking them to practices and games, traveling, soccer, this, that, the other thing. I did it all. I would sit up with them, talk until 1 o'clock. I wouldn't remember the fucking conversation the next day. And that's the scary part, is they would be talking to me, expecting me to be, there for them. And I was physically,
yeah.
but not mentally. And it's a lot of it's a fog. And that's a really hard thing to look back on and say, damn, because I can remember most conversations, but I'm not going to remember those, and I won't get them back. And that's a hard thing, for your kids. They are raised to always know you, to have that fog, because you always had it.
Right.
It wasn't ever not there. You know what I mean? Not that I was drunk all day, because I didn't drink till in the evening, 6, 7, 8 at night. As I got older, it got later, actually. But just to think, like, they always saw that fog, and now they're seeing a different person. I can look you in the eye and have a conversation and get really deep. And now it's like, it's almost hard for them to get that, because they're used to that more with their mother. But with me, it's like I said, I was always there. My wife was an engineer when I was starting my business. So she was working 50 hours a week, and I was at home with the kids and doing whatever jobs I could get until I became a big success. Compared to the engineering wasn't paying enough. She had to quit, raise the kids, and I had to build the business. So, but boy, if I could go back, that's what part of the reason I continue to get on Reframe, and part of the reason I'm on this podcast, is really to get that message out to the parent. To the parent. That's all. We all either make it or don't. And if you're single, you make it or you don't. If you're, no kids, you make it or you don't. The effect you're having on another person's life and long-term well-being. I am going through a lot of trauma myself from my father, and I love my father. My father and I work together all the time now. So and he did his part of making up. I tell you, it's something you'll appreciate, Ryan. When I was in my 40s and I was in a men's league, and my brother was on the team too, my dad would come out to these games at 11 o'clock at night as an older man and just sit there and watch a game.
That's awesome.
But I know what he was doing. And that's the hardest part is you saw it, and that traumatized you, and yet you fucking did it. You just did it. You did the same thing he did. Luckily, with my kids, they're very, very decent human beings. My wife and I raised them to care about everybody in the fucking world, no matter who they are, what they are, how they identify, or what color their skin is, or what religion they are, what background, or what country they come, to love everybody. So we can easily have conversations with the kids and say, you have the opportunity to break this cycle. You see that I did it, Bubba did it, his asshole dad did it, generations back. Now it's on you kids, and my kids are following that. They're not drinking. They're not doing that. They smoke their weed a little bit, but they're very here most of the. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not out there. I was out till 2.
Getting wild and crazy like we did.
Exactly, doing the crazy shit.
When you talk about that, and I want to say I'm not going to get emotional. I probably won't, just because I'm a go in the bathroom and cry. But my mom passed last year in April, and she was, for lack of a better word, adopted as a teenager, had a really traumatic childhood and upbringing. and she was the first cycle breaker. And she raised my brother and I as a single mom. And she struggled with mental health her entire life and unresolved trauma and all of the things. And she was the kind of woman that was fierce about the way she raised her children. I always say, like, she probably did some questionably unethical things to make sure her kid had a better life, but there was nothing that was going to stop her. I used to tease her and tell her that she chose two very smart piece of shit fathers on purpose because she wanted to hand down the brains. Like, my brother's dad was a medical provider in the military, and then my dad was an architect and engineer, but they were both raging alcoholics. I said, I think that at the time you did that on purpose because you knew they would give you babies that hopefully had that smart gene, but then would just go away and leave you alone. And she was young when she had us, so she realized that, right, that probably wasn't the best thing. But she's like, yeah, like, my mom never dated, never had a boyfriend, like, anything. And no one told her what to do with her kids. Like, if she was an avid Christian and Jesus himself could have come down and said no, and she would have been like, get the fuck out of my way, with all due respect. We'll talk to you at the pearly gates, okay? And she would always say to me, listen, I was the first cycle breaker. It takes 7 generations to break a cycle. She's like, I made it a point to do better than what I had. And you have to do better with Lily, our daughter. And Lily will do better with you. And with each generation, it's a ripple. See, now I'm going to get freaking emotional. And my mom never overcame her mental illness. And ultimately she had weight loss surgery and she died of a bowel obstruction. But honestly, what happened was she passed from a lifetime of untreated mental illness and addiction and body dysmorphia and all the things. And, she was just avidly her and gave us everything. And it was the same thing. She was traumatized and we were super close, but had a difficult relationship. But I remember when she passed, and not to sound sexist, but as a woman and as a mother, I just remember feeling like, oh my God, like, it's on, like, the responsibility to perform is so high. I mean, it was before, but feeling that mortality and stepping up into that matriarchal world and thinking about how my mother, with nothing, with no college degree, I lived in a trailer the first 5 years of my life. She literally dragged us out of there to say, my children are not going to continue in this cycle. And now, especially having a young woman in the world, and we're the same, right? Like, we are part of all of the different, networks, and we appreciate the human experience and acknowledge every human being's existence on this planet as it is. And you're right, like, our children do not ask to be here. It is not a consensual act, right? And they have no say in the situations they're born into, and they have no say in who their parents are or how that turns out. And so we owe them everything. And the scariest part is they owe us nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
They owe us nothing.
I ran across something the other day where somebody was talking about their kids and the fact that their kids didn't thank them for things. And these are adult kids, and this is, a grandma talking, and saying how her kids don't appreciate her and don't thank her enough. And I'm like, to me, a thank you from my kids is if one of my kids criticizes what I do, that tells me they care enough to correct my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thank you from your kids. Your kids don't thank you. It's not their job. Their job is to exist in a world of bliss until their kids are old enough to be assholes,
That's
and
right.
they can turn around to you and go, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
I get it
I
now.
did that a couple times with, with our kids where they're running into things. They'll have a roommate or something. Oh my God! They all have partners now. Steady partners and live in there independently. But they're, oh my God! Can't load a dishwasher right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, I get it. That's your job as a parent, is to do something, and not to get too spiritual, but you're doing something for God,
Mhm.
not for the kid. Your job is you create this being, or they create it, and you are the channel for this child to come into the universe, into the world, and then your job is to take that child and do the right things to make them a decent human being. And then you did your job in God's eyes, in my opinion. Not everybody's got to agree with that, but man, if you're having kids to look for thanks, wear a
Man.
condom.
Something's wrong there.
Wear a
Well,
condom.
and I
This
always
ain't gonna
say,
get it.
no, and I always say too, like parenting is like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded and blackout drunk, and you just hope to make it like near the board. Like you don't even have to make it on the board for it to be a win, just somewhere in the general vicinity, right?
Yeah,
Because they're not our property. And
yeah.
even from being little, they're little human beings. But I always say, I'm not raising kids. I'm raising adults. I'm raising
Raising
adults who are going
adults.
to
That's
go out
Yeah.
into the
greatest
world.
thing in the world. I see too many adults who are still
Uh-huh.
children. They're still,
Right.
it's funny, and I can say this even if he watches it. My son-in-law, who I love, he married my oldest daughter, and of course, oldest daughters are perfectionists, and he was raised very, very in a very spoiled way, and so he wasn't raised to do certain things or understand how to do or care about certain things, and he's learning from my daughter, who was raised to care about how you're affecting other people with your actions. And that's
Mm-hmm.
it's if you raise people to be adults, and part of adulting is caring about everybody else around you.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, and not being so self. You're not the sun. You're just a planet orbiting around. You're just a being. You're nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't think that the world's centered around you. So
No,
yeah,
not at all.
I definitely relate to that one, where you raise adults, not kids.
No,
That's
yeah. I mean, and we tell our daughter that I'm like, you're going to be an adult for the majority of your life. More than I'm worried about her going to college or anything like that. I'm worried about you need to be able to critically think. You need to be able to be
yeah,
compassionate and understanding. You need to be able to articulate
right.
yourself
Well,
correctly.
I'll give you when you send your kids to college, don't be the parent that shows up and puts the room together for them.
No.
Go up with the boxes,
Yeah.
take them out to lunch, and then depart.
Have a nice
Because
day.
we watched the parents that were obsessing over setting up our daughter's room, and we're like, "See you, Maddie. We got
That's
3 other
right.
kids. We're heading home in a month."
Well, and that goes back to the whole to rescue your children is to work in their detriment. And I was talking to someone about this the other day too, even allowing them to sit in boredom. And I'm not talking about neglect, oh, get out of my hair. I'm talking about kids coming to you when they're little and being like, I'm bored. Okay. Good.
Let's figure it out.
Well,
Figure it out.
because it especially with technology, it stimulates a part of their brain, the creativity, again, problem solving, critical thinking. And we tell our daughter all the time, she'll come and ask us these questions, and we've made a joke out of it, and I'll look at her and I'll say, if only there was this thing, like a mobile computer where you could just look stuff up and ask it questions, and it just
Starts with a G.
told you, gosh, if only we had something like that, it
We
would
do
make
that all the
situations
time.
like this so much easier.
When you talk about raising your kids to be functional and critical thinking, etc., one of the things that and I don't know how old your kids are, but from the time our oldest, from the time she was 11, she planned our Disney trips. She would actually plan them out. She wound up working for Disney eventually, but she would plan the flights. She would plan the hotels. She still manages all of our vacations now as we got older. We figured out she was a better parent anyway, so we let her have it.
That's awesome.
But like when we had problems with the cable company, we would get on the phone and we'd say, all right, we have a problem. I'm going to hand the phone to my son and he's going to deal with it with you. And my 12-year-old son would get on and fight with the Comcast for 2.5 hours until they gave us what the hell we wanted. And my kids handle so many situations on their own now. Not that we were trying to check out of parenting. We want them to be able to, if we go down in a plane tomorrow, which can happen at any time. You don't know. I can tell you a sad story. My son got married in November, and his father-in-law was there at the wedding. We had the small wedding at the house. 3 weeks later, 5 days before Christmas, he passed away of a heart attack, 59 years old. You don't know when the end of the game is. This is, it'd be like if you were playing a sport and there was no game clock. You didn't know when the end is. It just goes until all of a sudden the game's over. So you gotta prepare your kids for the just in case.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and I remember my son we were 25th anniversary, wedding anniversary. My wife wanted to bike across Italy. I'm like, oh, I don't really, I'm like, I don't think we should be leaving the kids. My son's only 12, the oldest one's like 19. I'm like, that's, and my son came to me and said, I swear to God, he came to me. He said, Dad, if you're worried about us, if you're worried about the plane going down, we got this. He's like, you raised us right, and we know how to handle life. So, he's like, God forbid the plane went down, we're fine.
I love that.
Well, first of all, that's a very amazing thing for a 12-year-old
to say. That's a bold statement.
And it also, it convinced me. I went to Italy and I had the most amazing bike trip across Tuscany and it was just gorgeous.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
And to bring it back to even sobriety, like for so long, I had that mentality too. When he was in his active drinking, I would get really down on myself and I'd be like, I did the one thing that my mother taught me not to do. I fucking married an alcoholic and I had a kid. I'm going to pass that gene down. She's going to grow up with an alcoholic father, and this is the person she's going to know. I cannot, why did I do this? But speaking to it now, okay, she has seen such a transformation, and sadly, she has seen what happens when you don't fight those battles, and she sees what happens when you do. And I always tell her, we always try to make it a bigger thing. Like if we're talking about grades or anything, I always try to tell her the bigger story and the why. We don't just do the because I said so. Like I want her to understand there's a reason why we teach you these things. And I always tell her, it's easy to take an A. It's easy to take a win and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, man, go me. It's not easy to take the F or the loss and then still look at yourself and get up and do it again. And there's no guarantee that you're not going to lose or take the F again, but you still get up and do it again. And with his sobriety and my brother's, what I've told her is, the beautiful silver lining to all of this is you see people who get up every single day and look in the mirror and say, I'm not going to be a fucking asshole today. I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to use today. And at night, if they're like, well, I was a fucking asshole today, they don't just roll over and say, fuck it, and get drunk or continue to be an asshole. They go, that sucked. But tomorrow I'm going to do better. And I don't have to be perfect. I just have to do better. And so like when she fucks some shit up, I tell her, it's not about getting it right. It's about try something different. Just don't be a repeat offender. Don't get up tomorrow and do the same thing expecting a different result or just become complacent. Try something different, because even if you try 100 different things and none of it works out, that's exactly what success looks like.
I tell people, Jess, I tell people all the time, because I run a business that I've been running for this is my 40th year. I started 5 businesses.
Mm.
I started my first one when I was 19 years old. And it took a couple years to get one that was sticking. And even then I tried other things in the middle to be like, well, what about,
Mm-hmm.
but this stuff. And if I gave up on every failure, and even with this business, I hit a couple of points. And one of my best stories is one of the points that we literally lost everything. We lost all of our capital on a risk. We bought our first truckload of wood. We had we had 20 grand. I borrowed 20 grand from my late sister. Well, she wasn't late at that point, but anyway, borrowed 20 grand from my sister. I spent the 40 grand on the truckload to supply materials to a couple companies, and those companies went bankrupt, and almost so did I. And it caused panic. I have all this wood. I don't have those companies. I don't have those receivables anymore, and I got no cash in the bank. Holy shit, what do? I literally hand painted a little A-frame sign, put it out on the street, said wood flooring, had a retired buddy of mine sit, God bless his soul, he was the greatest, he was my other father. But anyway, he sat in a fake showroom 2 days a week, and people would walk in and be like, oh, I like this wood, and then I'd come out and measure, and we'd sell jobs. So, and that's a lesson for anybody out there, like your lowest point can be your springboard. That was the lowest point. I'd worked for years to get to the point where I had enough money to buy half a truckload, borrow the other 20 grand. Now I had to pay my sister back, and she wasn't nice about that.
Yeah.
So I needed 20 grand to pay her back quick, and I had to continue in life because I had a wife.
You got to be willing to pivot and willing to change.
And I had to
at any
adjust.
moment.
All of a sudden, I was never intending on having a showroom.
Yeah.
I didn't have that intention. I was just going to be a contractor and I was like, shit, I got to sell this wood. We'll put up a fake showroom, a little thing on wheels with a garage door open. People started buying. Now we're a 6-day-a-week showroom. I don't believe in being open on Sundays or in the evenings, quite frankly. We're only open one evening a week.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in an 8 to 5 work. I believe in the old blue laws.
Yeah.
If everybody went back to the blue laws where we all worked from 8 to 5 and then came home and then we're home on the weekends, or just make it a 5-day work week somehow, like it would be a better time.
Yeah.
But just to be able to be flexible and realize that low point, I could have threw my hands up, filed bankruptcy, and said, oh well. Right, I was in an adjustable rate mortgage at the time too. Like nothing could have been worse at the time. But I was like, no, this is a springboard. You gotta win, and I did, and I won big, and I just kept going. You gotta be able to be flexible. So you can relate that to sobriety. Like you can try 80 different ways to be sober, and 81 might be your lucky one.
That one time. Yep.
And that's about teaching. Everybody wants instant gratification. And that's just not, and there are some things in life that you do get instantly gratified by, and that we take, those are little, just like happy bonuses.
Yes.
But my brother recently said something to me. I've brought him up a lot in this podcast, but he really is like, I love you so much, but he really is like, other than my daughter, like my favorite human being. Like my Bubba is like, my favorite. And I call him Bubba. His name is John. I have never called him John a day in his life. If I say the name John, he automatically thinks I am speaking to someone else. He will not respond to it. He is my Bubba. So, we were talking about like him in his darkest moments and, essentially being homeless and all that stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like it was terrible, this, that, or another. And I realized recently he's changed the way he speaks about it. And he's like, I'm thankful for those moments. Those moments are what saved my life. He said, I used to look back at my addiction and hate it and really just be very, have a lot of animosity for what it took from me. And then I realized in my recovery, it may have taken a lot, but oh my gosh, I cannot ignore all the things that it gave to me. Absolutely. It changed me. Like it was a blessing. He's like, I now say I am thankful for it because not only did I come out the other side, he's like, the way I look at the world and value people and empathize is dramatically different than before.
It's much like if you're born into a wealthy family and you're wealthy your whole life, compared to, if you're born poor and you work, claw and scratch and get out of it, it's amazing. You appreciate it more because you work for it. You're in this sobriety, becoming sober and just seeing things in a new light at 59 years old, which is what I was. I'm 61 now, but 59 when I quit. But just to see the world in a different view at 59 years old, it actually, people tell me all the time, they're like, I can't believe you're 61. You look so young. I'm like, I'm literally reversing fucking age.
That's right.
Like, I look in the mirror and I'm like,
Y'all do that.
This looking guy. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've actually gone backwards at this point. I feel great. I look, in my opinion, not everybody's.
You look amazing.
But just to get that opportunity to see life differently, because I've been in the same house for 30 years. But the last 2 years, I can't tell you how much I appreciate my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fucking trees that we planted at 5 foot tall when we planted them, and now they're 50 feet tall.
Yeah.
And the woods behind us, and the gardens that my wife obsesses over, and the stupid chickens in the backyard, just things. Just walking into a coffee shop and seeing my little barista friends that I love them. I love them all. I mentor them all. I try to, and quite frankly, several of them have become sober since my becoming sober, because they're like, you inspired me, dude.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, I love that.
That's something. But anyway, he made me lose my train of thought.
That's a good thing. Listen, we have 3 cats and 2 dogs, and we just lock them out of this room whenever we're in here.
I appreciation for the cats. I mean, I have Thumper and Fitz. I'm surprised Fitz hasn't jumped on me.
Ryan hasn't quite gotten to the appreciation of the animals, and I will openly admit that every single animal in our home has come home without his consent or awareness.
And while I'm out of town,
I was fully expecting you to say you like them all better than you like Ryan.
That is true too.
That seems to be a theme here.
That is true too. He'll be like, the dogs are shitting all over the floor, the cat peed on the bed. I'm like, don't talk about my sweet babies like that. Clean it up.
I absolutely love my cats. I wasn't a cat person growing up. In fact, my mom always hated cats, and she talked down on them. And then I married my wife, and I had a choice. And it's funny, you talk about cycles repeating. I got to tell you, my son was like always irritated by the cats living here when he was living here. And then he met his wife, his now wife, and she loved cats, and they got two cats. She loves them, And I got to tell you something. This is just total side story. My wife was my best friend's girlfriend. Okay, I think there's a song about that, right? My wife was my best friend's girlfriend in high school, and then I started dating her, and we were no longer friends. My son's wife is his best friend's girlfriend.
Oh, wow. What a cycle.
That's a weird cycle to repeat. And it wasn't on purpose.
And a hard one to repeat, too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But anyway, sorry, that was a total sidetrack. Nothing to do.
No, it's fine. Before we get in
those stories and those moments, I'll tell you another son story. I saved his baby blanket from the time he was, he stopped carrying it at 12. It was this big by that point, right? Kept it in my underwear drawer. I never thought about it. Found it a little while ago. I'm like, oh, if he ever gets married, I'm going to pull that out on his wedding day. Well, his wedding day, we made napkin roses for all the play. Yeah, I did all the, set up cater, like we catered it here, self-catered, right? And I took his so with the help of one of my daughters, we took his baby blanket, made it into a rose, and put it on his plate.
Oh.
I can't tell you how touched he was that I had saved that for 15 years in my drawer, pulled it out on his wedding day, didn't embarrass him in front of other people because we called him in to check the setting to make sure it was okay. He saw that, went, what's that? He was touched, right? Go to clean up after the wedding. Where's the baby blanket? So I text him, hey, where's the baby blanket? He said, I'm keeping it. I'm going to cry. I'm keeping it for the nursery when we have kids. You don't get that kind of emotional feeling
Mhm.
when you're drinking all the time, when you're numbing your reality. You just don't get that. And to have that, to be able to have my son's wedding completely sober, completely in touch, and to be able to do a couple things to make him remember. And he's very, very, because his older siblings taught him, he's very in touch with his feminine side. I am a very feminine male. I know I don't present that way, but I'm more on the feminine side.
Mhm.
I like the traditionally feminine things compared to the masculine. I'm a decorator. I cook. I do all the things that, people are like, oh, that's a woman's job. No, they're all my jobs.
That's
But,
right.
but to be able to show to him, to be, it gives him the opportunity to see a side of me that hopefully he'll have from the time he has kids
Mhm.
until forever. So
That's a
that's my
beautiful
hope,
thing, Dan.
is trying to create an emotional being that isn't afraid to show that love.
Yeah,
So
I love
sorry.
that's beautiful.
No,
No,
that's
it's
No, I'm
beautiful.
not
I
sorry.
love it.
Fuck that. I'm not sorry.
Don't be sorry. There is no sorries on this damn thing.
listen. Before we get into our final question, what I will say to you is don't ever be sorry for sharing those feelings. My mom told me when she had my brother, he's older than I am, as soon as she held him, she started violently shaking head to toe and panicking because that feeling of, I am going to give you everything, I'm going to love you. I mean, with her last breath, she's like, being a parent was the most amazing thing I ever did with my life.
Sure.
It was her favorite job in the world. And funny enough, I truly believe that she held on long enough to see Ryan sober and my brother sober, because within a year of Ryan being sober is when she passed. And I think it's because she knew, like, everything's okay in the world.
Yes.
She, my daughter was her only grandchild. And my daughter looked exactly like me when I was little.
Mhm.
And she fucking adored her. I named her Lillian because that was my mom's
That's so
favorite name.
bizarre. That's my mom's name.
Mhm.
That was
Lily.
my great grandmother's name was Lillian too, which was odd.
So her name is Lillian, and it's and we call her Lily. And lilies were one of my mom's favorite flowers. And I always knew, I never really fantasized about having kids. My mom just raised me to be very feminist, and you don't need to fantasize about a wedding and a husband and babies and all that. And I never did. I ended up with those things by choice, but it's not something I fantasized about. But I always knew as I got older that if I had a daughter, I would name her Lillian, and I did. And my mom just thought that she was the most fucking amazing thing in the world. And she would tell me all the time, Jessica, seeing you as a mom and seeing Lily grow up is just, I could not ask for anything more, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
And when she passed, Lily has some of her like jewelry and things like that. And handing those things down it's amazing. I always say, if our house caught on fire, I wouldn't be running back in for my wedding ring or anything like that. I'd run back in for my little tummy pillow that my mom gave me when I was 5 and my appendix ruptured, and my little teddy bear that my grandma, found for me because I was crying as a baby because I lost it, and things like that. So I mean, that's what life's all about right there. I mean, the house and all that stuff, it's fun to have if you have the money, but it's all just fluff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's all about the family.
The experiences.
It's all about the people that you call family, because sometimes that extends beyond blood. It
Yeah.
really does. And so I want to be clear on that. You can have family that's never never been related to you, never will be.
That's
Yeah.
like the majority of our circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call them they're not family, but they are to us.
Same here. My kids hang around with their cousins more than they hang out with
That's
their
right.
cousins. You know,
Listen,
like
my best friend and I, we say we're twin flames. We are convinced that in every existence we are in each other's lives. And she has 2 boys. They were 4 and 6 when I met her. They are now in their 20s. And she was there before Ryan existed. And anytime he's feeling any kind of way, I'm like, listen, she was here first, buddy. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. She's part of the family, like it or not.
Yeah.
All right, Dan. Well, I got a couple things for you, and we'll get you out of here.
Go ahead.
the-
You know me, no hurry. I'm the one that eats up half the
That's
hour.
it's not a big deal. So I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we get a lot of listeners here. Some a lot from Reframe and then outside. What would be, I guess, your biggest a lesson that you would want somebody listening to this to basically take away from your story?
The biggest, and I mentioned this already, is that absolutely, like, to all parents, change now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait. Like, this is your opportunity to not fuck it up. And I didn't fuck it up completely. My kids are very happy with what I did, but this is your opportunity. But if I'm looking for advice to give people that are sober curious or considering whether they should, is don't do this half-ass. Like, don't expect to go on Reframe and do your daily tasks and poof, you're fucking sober. It's not the way it happens. We're talking in the beginning 3 meetings a day, and that was because there was only 3 meetings a day.
Right.
Read a Quit Lit book? No, read them all twice. Some of them 3 times, because especially I will say, the ones written by the women are so much better because they get so fucking deep into the emotional side of it. You'll come out better on the other. I tell guys, Quit Like a Woman is one of the best books I've read. It was absolutely phenomenal. This Naked Mind, like, these are incredible. Like, but the point being that treat this like it's a fucking job, because it's the most important job. I remember saying to myself, you never expect a short answer from me. I remember saying to myself, man, if I could just leave my job and go away for 2 months and come back and be sober, I would do it. Well, so if you feel that passionately, like, why not make it a part-time job or a full-time job? Like, concentrate on this fully. Every second. Obviously, some people have to work for a living. I'm retired, right? But people have to work for a living. Then do your 8 hours and make the other 16 about becoming sober. And that includes a good night's sleep, right? That's 8 of them. So make it a job. And give it everything you got, because I can't tell you how it's just hard to express. And I'm an expressive person.
Yeah.
But it's hard to express how much better you feel and how fucking amazing life is being sober, and be out there. Be out there. Let everybody know. People, why aren't you drinking? Why the fuck are you drinking?
That's right.
Why aren't I drinking?
That's my response.
I remember one guy used to say, I don't use anymore because it's a drug. Like, why aren't you drinking? Doesn't benefit me.
It's the most deadly drug.
Yeah.
It is by far. And it aggravates me, the marketing and all that. But I truly think we're heading in the smoking direction.
Yes.
When I was 18 years old, I was in the hospital, had meningitis. My nurse's name was Daniel Patrick Higgins, which is my name. But anyway, he used to bring me Marlboros and Big Macs to smoke while I was in quarantine for meningitis. You could smoke in a hospital, a grocery store, an airplane, your kitchen. Like, my last cigarette that I put out 32 years ago was on my nightstand, right? It's just, I think alcohol's heading that way.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it does, because I hope, and I'm not trying to take away people's pleasure. What I'm trying to do is say, find a life that's pleasurable and live it. Don't worry about the picket fence or the house or anything.
Mm-hmm.
The happiest people I know are like the surfers that hang out near my sister's house down the shore, and they're like living in a fucking 1-bedroom shack, and they work part-time jobs. But man, if them waves are rolling, they ain't working that job
That's
today.
right.
Them fucking waves, So sorry.
That's beautiful, Dan.
No
I love
short
it.
answers from me.
No,
Sorry.
I love it. That was
I'm
great.
gonna have to edit this.
And I love
I'm not editing anything out of
we're
it.
not
Are you
editing
kidding me?
shit on this. And I love the way you say, because I always say, you got to put in the work, but I love the way you said you got to treat it like a job.
Oh hell
I
yeah!
honestly think that's the first time I've heard, and I love that.
Me too.
And you do. It's it's like I tell people, we go to the meetings, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day, depending on where you're at.
Right.
But when you're not in that meeting, who's holding you accountable? It's got to be you. You got to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Again, it's putting in the work. Or as you would say, which I'm going to steal that from you, you're working your other job, which is staying sober, which is a beautiful thing. I love that.
Your career, your business.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our show up challenge because, and I will be very short with this, but when I started my mental health journey 4.5 years ago, I reached out to a provider friend, and I'd make appointments and cancel. And finally she texted me and she's like, "Why are you canceling all your appointments?" And I was like, I gave her a bunch of bullshit excuses. And she's like, "Listen, I don't want to have to start charging you a cancellation fee." And my office gets like really pissed, right? It's a respect thing. Totally understandable. Get it. Mm-hmm. She's like, "Most of the time with my patients, when they do this, there's something blocking them." She said, "Make the appointment, come to the office, simply show up. We don't have to take your blood pressure, nothing. You can sit in the room and I won't even see you. Literally just show up. Walk in the door. Yeah. That's all you have to do. We don't even have to talk about anything, because if you show up, that's a win."
Yep.
Yeah.
Showed up, spent like an hour and a half there, bawled my eyes out, told my story, and here I am now. And she's now one of our closest friends. Actually, we're going to have her and her husband on the podcast soon to kind of talk more about like the medical aspect of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I have lived my life by that. Is like, and I see this with Reframe, like the to-do list and the checklists are great, but some days just show up, because believe it or not, if you just get your ass out of the bed and log on to the meeting, or just like walk through the door, whatever it is, the list that you have, the task, they'll get done.
Mm-hmm. You got to know how to separate a list. I always tell people you can't have one to-do list.
Yeah.
Because one to-do list says these things, and these are priority. This is the things I have to do today, or the world burns down, right? And there's only 2 of them on there, and quite frankly, one of them the world won't burn down. But and then you have your not priority, and then but the to-do list has to be your number one item every day from here until you get to that point. And I want to tell everybody, like, don't be discouraged that, oh my God, I'll never drink again. Think of it like riding a bicycle or snowboarding. They're very hard to learn, but once they click, you got it, right? So this is a little longer learning curve. It's not 3 hours with Dad pushing you around the park, right? This is a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year of retraining yourself. But there is a moment, and you don't notice it. You just all of a sudden one day when you see people pouring bourbons, you're like, ew. You're like, wait, did I just say ew?
Yeah.
What the,
it's like becoming fluent in another language.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When I started doing hardwood flooring, it was a job. I worked doing it. It was like, okay, I'm good at this. I taught myself, but I'm like, I'm good at this. I could do this. And then it became a passion. I started learning about it, and it became second nature to me. And this is a job. This is a job. Make it a job. Do it even though you don't want to, and learn more and more about it. And next thing you'll be educated on. Next thing you know, people will be coming to you and going, so how? Just curious. So how do you do this? So wait. So why are you looking? How come you're not at the doctor's twice a month anymore? I literally, I gotta tell you, I love my doctor. She's Sue. I don't trust men. Anyway, so
Me neither.
my Dr. Sue, I texted Dr. Sue, very holistic doctor, and or emailed her. I'm like, hey, just wanted to say hi, tell you I missed you. I'm like, quitting alcohol is the best fucking thing I ever did, but I don't get to see you anymore. And by the way, make sure you tell anybody with a problem with alcohol that Reframe is just, it's not the only answer, but boy, was it the answer for me and a lot of people.
And for me too. Yeah.
I've never met someone who got sober and regretted it.
That's for sure. 100%.
Or didn't drink one night. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
All right, Dan. So last question, and you can go one of two ways on this. I got to go back to your old drinking days. I need to yank a story out of you. A funny story, could be yours, somebody else's. Just a funny drunk story or a good pee story, one of the other.
I was prepped with the pee stories because, that's your tradition, right? So I literally came up with, and I'm going to go through these real brief. Anyway, most dangerous pee was driving in a car down a highway down Route 95 heading south to Myrtle Beach with my buddy in a Camaro, and I literally switched seats at 60 miles an hour and peed in a water bottle, in a Coke bottle, and throw it out the window. My grossest pee was in a laundry basket, thinking it was a toilet in the middle of the night because I was so drunk. And my most talented pee was on a ski lift. I had to piss so bad that I was on a ski lift. I'm like, nobody can really see me. And I just kind of off the side. So, okay. But
I like how you categorize.
I love it. It's like an award show.
You're like, everybody's, well, make sure you get your pee story ready. I'm like,
Golden Globes, literally.
The whole hour on pee stories.
Well, with the men, if you go and listen to every single podcast, you will realize the girls.
We have a little more versatility. That's on
right.
it.
Yeah, like we asked the guys, we're like, tell us your favorite pee story, and they're like, I mean, I didn't have to like. Where's the place I haven't peed?
I'm proud to say that I'm married to a woman that will pee in the woods.
Yeah,
and we'll also poop in the woods if she. We run programs with inner city youth, and we take them out canoeing and hiking and camping and all this stuff, right? And we teach them river safety and all this shit. And one of the badges that we give out is if you poop in the woods. That's one of our. So you got a board and you get your different badges.
I love it.
One's pooping in the woods.
I love that.
Anyway, so a funny drunken story. I did think, all right. So I'm sitting there. It's an outdoor tiki bar at a water park up in the Poconos, right? Camel Beach, it's called, right? Sitting at the tiki bar. Tiki bar is by the entrance, so none of the kids can leave. So I'm sitting there. My 4 kids are running around. I'm with my friend Deb, and her, my wife's with us too, but Deb's in the story. So Deb's sitting next to me at the bar, probably because I'm at the bar and Deb would sit at the bar. But we're sitting at the bar and her kids are running around. My kids are running around. And there's this lady next to us and we're talking to her. So she's having on about her kids are also out running around. And I'm like, oh, so, this is my wife and this is my friend Deb. Her husband's not up here. I'm like, where's your husband? She says, well, he's working. He's always fucking working. I'm like, oh, why didn't he come up here with you and the kids? Yeah. She's like, he's too fucking busy. So I grab her cell phone, I pick it up, and I hit because, everybody, the first one that pops up is the husband. So I call this guy. I say, hey, I'm sitting here at a tiki bar with your wife. It's nice out. Where are you at? He laughs a couple times. Hey, let me talk to my wife. He talks to the wife. I hang up. 40 minutes later, I get a tap on the shoulder. I turn around. I swear to God, I am not lying. I'm looking at Shrek. Fucking life-size Shrek. This guy's an auto mechanic, and I swear to God, if you look at him, he's got the scars, everything. The boat's coming out the air. He's Shrek. And I turn around, I look up, and I'm like, well, this is where I die. And he just starts laughing at me. And he sits down, and we became best friends.
That's
We
incredible.
were, for a long time, not best friends, I should say best drinking buddies.
Yeah.
Our families traveled together. We did everything together. We both owned a house up at the ski resort. So we were skiing together. Kids were skiing together. We were hanging out together. And we just had, and it would lead me to many more stories. We went to the hotel. We stole a luggage rack so that the kids could run the luggage rack down the hill. Things like that. But anyway, this guy, thank God he had a sense of humor. Thank God he let me live that day. He's literally a foot taller than me and 100 pounds more than me. And but he was that guy that you meet that you realize drinks more than you. So now you're not as bad as that guy.
Yeah.
But when we traveled, we'd go to Disney, Universal, we'd be in Jamaica, we'd be here, we'd be there. My wife and I always had a steadfast rule. If you're going to fly with the Eagles at night, what is it? You got to work with the turkeys in the morning or something like that. Anyway, if you were going to drink at night, you had to get up in the morning for the kids, both of you, not one of you, both of you. So 6:30 a.m., you got to be up. You know Disney, right? You were just there. The alarm goes off at 6 o'clock. You got to be out the door by 6:30 at the bus stop by 7, right? So Terry and his wife, I shouldn't have said his name. Anyway, him and his wife would not get up in the morning. And we'd take our kids and their kids, to the bus stop, to the park, and then they would meet up with us later. So I always had that person that drank more than me. We all have that. We all do. It's a game. Yeah. If you can find somebody, you can drink longer. I found
Heroin makes you feel better about yourself. It's bad.
Right.
I've had a few of those.
Eventually I figured out I was that guy.
Yeah.
I was that guy that other people were saying, at least I'm not drinking as much as
right. Yeah.
And that's when it was time.
Yeah. That's
when it was time to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Speaking of wrapping up, Dan, thank you so much, brother.
That was a segue for you.
This was amazing. It was so much fun. It was great to get to know you.
I got to tell you, I was scared to death to do this.
And was it not the easiest fucking thing you've ever done?
I'm like, what the hell am I going to say for an hour? Now I'm like, oh shit, we're an hour and 20.
I love it.
Just friends cutting it up, buddy.
All right, great talking.
Just promise me we have to do a part 2, okay?
Absolutely.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm sure I've got more shit to talk about.
I love it. And I've got more to ask.
2 years coming up. 2 years coming up for you. 2 years coming up for Nancy. She's February 25th. I'm March 4th. When's your date, Ryan?
Mine's May 20th.
May 20th.
Yep.
Okay.
June 1st.
And hers is June 1st. Will be her year.
So you're 2 days before my wife's birthday.
Yeah.
I don't have a June 1st. I'll have to think about that, how late yours.
Anyway. I like being unique and different.
Well, this was quite a pleasure meeting you, Jess. And
you too.
A pleasure talking with you more personal level.
Absolutely.
This was great.
And we'll do it more. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate it, buddy.
Bye, Dan.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby.